I'm Jacob Plant and I'm a DJ and producer, remixer as well. I did Reading and Leeds in 2013, which was amazing. December I went on tour in India, which was a mental. And I've got a load of festivals coming up this year, going out to America. I've remixed Sub Focus, Rihanna, Chasing Status, Example, Calvin Harris, a lot of people over the last 2 years. I'll remix a song that I like. Sometimes I get asked to do them, sometimes I'll ask to do them as well. Mainly, if the vocal's good, I'll take it on. I think the best thing that happened to me was last year. I was picked up by Calvin Harris and signed 2 singles to his label, and that really excelled everything in terms of gigs, remixes coming in. I'm influenced by club music, always finding influence from underground stuff that I hear from around the world, from gigging. Have older influences as well, but for originals it's mainly hearing new, fresh music really. It's interesting hearing other people's stems, like seeing their sessions when you get them. You can learn some tricks and take ideas as well, which has helped me over the last couple of years, definitely. I picked up Pro Tools when I was 13, and I had a few outboard gear, and I used to just play all the sounds and the synths, and recording guitar over drum loops, and it was quite fun really. Wasn't too serious. Always carried on ever since school really. I use Pro Tools and an MBox Pro as my main bit of kit. A pair of Mackie speakers, my machine, a MIDI keyboard here, and the artist mixer. And most of my sounds are all plugins and samples that I use within the box. I mainly use machine and most Native Instruments stuff as my main plugins to go to for sounds. Apart from that, sound toys, I use a lot of their effects. You can get quite flooded with using too much. Sometimes I go through periods where I'll just install loads of synths and I just can't find any sounds I like because I have too many. I've used other software apart from Pro Tools, but my workflow is really quick on it. It's really good with audio and I love to work with audio. I like to stack up sounds and kind of bust them together and group them, so I bounce everything down to audio. I think to get cool sounds you just got to manipulate them a lot, which involves putting loads of effects on a track, bouncing it down and then doing the same thing again and again. By the time you've finished with a certain sound, it's completely different to how it was when it came out the synth. Being an original is the most important thing, I think, for dance music especially. A lot of it's down to pushing boundaries and just keeping it interesting and always finding out new techniques and ways to do things as well. The first song we're looking at is a song called Fire, which was released on Calvin Harris's label last March. It's possibly my biggest song I've done in terms of reaction in the clubs, with the DJs playing it and record sales. A basic and main part of a song is obviously the melody and what you play in. So with this song, it was quite simple. I just found my sounds and stacked them up here, as you can see in MIDI. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Five different sounds to create one sound. I started obviously by putting my drums together and then fiddling around. What I'd normally do, I'd loop just a straight beat as you got here, and I would just play around, mess around with sounds and find a riff that I like. Once you got that ready, it's quite simple. I just will record it in. So I've got it all here in MIDI, and then obviously I'll quantize it, get it in time, which is the most important thing. I'm a fan of having everything in audio because I like to just see what's going on in the waveform, and then you just know that there's no weird MIDI glitches happening or anything like that, or the synth isn't doing anything it shouldn't. So once I've played in my MIDI and got it all in time, I'm happy with all the sounds. I'll then bounce it down to audio. What's good about cutting it to audio is you could also cut each individual one, maybe make them a bit out of time as well. So it kind of gives it a more natural effect, gives it more groove as well. So yeah, I've cut these all in time. Sometimes with this song it was good to get rid of the release as well, and that's one reason why I like to use audio, is because you can almost control and see the sustain, the release and the attack. I'm quite a visual person, so I went through and just cut off each last section just so it had a kind of, it felt separated. And then obviously use the fade tool at the end just to fade it off so it doesn't clip. I then will put it through a bus again and run it through effects. In this case I added stereo widening, which I use Ozone 5 for, which is really good. And just a bit of EQ. Here I just added some top and a bit of mid. And compression again, just to compress the whole sound together. This is the glue which I use in basically everything I do. And decapitator, which is a distortion unit, which is really good. It just tightens everything together. And then a limiter. I simply then just bounce it down onto one channel again, so it's just the bass sound is just on one section. And then once it's done, I'll leave it and move on to the next sound. Because it's made up of 4 different sounds from 4 different synths, it's obviously really hard to kind of recreate it or find it in a synth because it doesn't exist. So what I sometimes do is I've got one note here, and I'll actually bounce that out, maybe do all the notes up the scale for a couple of octaves. And then I've got the sounds which I can then assign to a sampler and actually use on my keyboard. One thing that's really important for songs or dance songs is having a vocal hook or a vocal sample. That normally makes a song. This one, I found this rave sample. On fire like this. I always think it's good to pitch samples up and down just so they sound different from the original sample, because if other people have used them before, your song will sound different. So the first thing I do is pitch it up using speed. So here's the sample as it is. It's a bit out of time. So what I like to do is just go through each individual section here that you can see is a bit out of time and put it in time. And the best thing to do is use the time stretch tool just to get everything tight. Drag that into place, time stretch it, and do that through the whole sample. Once you've done that, it's all in time. So that's just a simple thing I do in all of my songs, but it's just really quick and easy to do in Pro Tools using the stretch tool. The only other thing I've really done on this one is scoop the bottom out just so it fits in the mix better, using the EQ that comes with Pro Tools. The glue again for compression, and I've also used Vocal Rider, which it kind of does the same. It's just to even out the sample, so it sits at a nice level. One thing I do here, which you hear in a lot of dance music and a lot of songs now, is filtering. as you can hear. The sound like filters up. And to achieve that, I use Filter Freak, which is my favourite filter. I'm using a low pass filter here. I just automated the frequency. The lower the frequency, the lower you cut down, obviously the less highs there are. I just drew in the line using the drawing tool. And it's a really cool effect, and it's pretty common now. But once I was happy with the sound, I did the same as I did with everything else. I EQ'd it, compressed it using the glue, and then I'll bounce it down to audio again. The best way to make your kick drum punch through is to sidechain a sound, which basically means when the kick comes in, your sound will go down, and as the kick goes through, the sound comes up. And there's loads of different ways of doing sidechaining. A lot of people use plugins to do it. I actually use the volume tool to do it, which isn't very common, but it still does the same thing. And what I do is I'll take a tiny part of the grid and I'll just draw in a dip in the volume where the initial hit of the kick drum is. Just so when the kick drum comes in, you can really hear the click of the drum. You might not hear a massive difference when you do it, but if you do that on everything over the whole drop, when it comes to mastering a song, it actually makes a massive difference. So when I build the drums in a song, I always start with a kick drum, which is the most important thing. I normally get two or three sounds to make one kick drum. Here I have 2 highs and a low. So this is the first sample. This is the second one. And this is the third one. And I'll basically just layer them up on top of each other and run them through a bus and then compress them as one sound to make one kick drum. It's always really important to compress a kick drum just to make it sound really punchy and give it a full body. Here I've got a short attack and the release is pretty middle as well. This kick drum is very clicky, so the top end is really important. So once I've got the kick drum, I'll then find all the other sounds around it. I normally just use Machine to find all my sounds. So what I do is I'll draw in a middle C, MIDI note, and I basically will just loop it, open up Machine, solo the drum as well. And I'll just painfully sit there on loop for hours until I've found the right sounds. Once I find the sound I like, I will either find the original sample, as you can see the name, and I'll just import it into the session. I only do that if I don't really want to manipulate the sound. I normally pitch my snares up when I'm doing a build of a song. So if I just get a simple snare and show you how I do it. As an example, I do things like pitching the drum up to give it a kind of pitch effect. I bounce them down to audio to give me an excuse to move on. So once I bounce it down, I kind of think, right, that's it, I can move on. Or I can then cut it up and mess around with it. So it's always good to hide when you finish bouncing it down, hide and make inactive. So you've got a record of it in case you need to go back, change the sound and start again. I'm going to go through how to master a song in Pro Tools using my song When I Say Go, which is on the Warehouse EP as well. First of all, what I do is I'll bounce the song down when it's finished at about -10 dB. So it's not clipping, it's not peaking, all the signals are clean, and I'll bounce that down to WAV, and then I'll import it into a new session, as you can see here. The first thing I do is I'll duplicate the song, and I'll compress one of the versions really hard, just quickly as an example, using this. I'll process it so it's really flat. As you can see here, the waveform is really flat compared to the other one, which is has a bit more dynamic. And I'll turn that right down, maybe to -5. When you play them back together, it will just be bigger because you have a really compressed version here and the uncompressed version there. And it just kind of gives it a bit of oomph, which a lot of other stuff doesn't. I EQ and compress most of my sounds within the original session, so I don't really EQ the master that much. With this song, I did actually EQ it using the passive EQ, which is Native Instruments. And all I've done really is just boost certain frequencies, my low, mid, mid-high, and high. All that's done really is just enhance some of the frequencies I wanted enhancing, just to kind of brighten the mix, give it a bit more punch and sub as well. And then finally, I add ozone onto the master. It has everything in it: a maximizer, stereo imager, compressor, EQ, reverb. I'll normally just stereo widen it, just to kind of give it, spread out the sound. And that normally will actually enhance other sounds as well, especially sounds that you've kept mono. So your kick drum and the sub will stay here while the highs will space out. And actually you'll find that your song is louder, brighter, and just clearer. And once I've stereo imaged it, I actually just use this maximizer here. And I don't pull it down too much, but I do squeeze the song quite hard. To make it loud, as you can see here. So you can see there on the graphics that the limiter has actually come down quite a lot. It's not destroying the song, it's not distorting it, it's just enough. So that's what I tend to do, that's it really. There's loads more to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you anymore, otherwise I'll be out of a job.